Hello there fellow acolytes of Sega Saturn, welcome back to part 2 of my first annual Sega Saturn Awards. These are completely arbitrary awards and they're for Saturn games that I played this year. This time I'm doing it alone because my cat doesn't want to be with me this time, but never mind. As before, the rules remain. It's only games I played this year. There's only one award per game and only one game from each series. Got that? Good. Let's carry on with the awards then. All games generally are well known for their stories. Usually any story they do have is just an excuse for the action to start. The only exception tends to be in RPGs, and even then a lot of them contain the same generic, yet somehow convoluted story. There have been a handful of games this year though that have succeeded in not only having a story, but having a damn good story that keeps you interested. And the one that does that best is Dark Savior. The game puts you in the shoes of Garion, a bounty hunter who's been charged escorting a prisoner, Billen, to a prison island, and things go wrong when Billen escapes and you need to track him down. It's a simple enough setup, but the game has 5 different parallels based on how the start of the game plays out. Each scenario plays out differently and provides a different aspect to the story. For example, one parallel sees Billen making his way to Jailer's Island, but then another one sees him die in your ship by your hand, and things play out differently. Obviously the prison island still has like a lot of dodgy things going on, especially with the guy in charge, and those kind of things play out, but play out a lot differently now that Billen's not in the picture. I'm not going to go into any details about the twists and turns, but it really is well thought out, and each individual parallel contains an excellent story, with all of them combined giving you a fuller picture as to what's going on with both Prison Island and what's actually going on with Gary. In my opinion, Japanese RPGs tend to have quite annoying stories that all, play out using the same tropes and being overly convoluted, as I mentioned before. But Dark Savior, on the other hand, tells a simple story, but it's a great story, and it develops more complexity as you start to weave the parallels together, and as such it keeps you interested as a result. Dark Savior definitely deserves this award because it's a storytelling masterpiece. Last time we looked at the most reliable, which was the game I came back to the most, but most played on the other hand refers to the game I sunk the most hours into. My honourable mentions for this generally contain games that take a long time to beat, but it does also contain games that I replayed multiple times. The winner of this category though definitely fits into the former category, and I'm talking about, of course, the Sega Saturn epic Panzer Dragoon Saga. The Panzer Dragoon series spans over 4 different consoles and 6 different games. 5 of those are rail shooters that can be beaten in a reasonably short period of time, but they're still loads of fun and really replayable. Saga, on the other hand, changes things up and switches to a JRPG style. The length, as you can imagine, increases a fair bit because of that, but thankfully it doesn't lose any of the fun. As someone who is kind of notorious really for not caring about RPGs, I was very hesitant to get into Panzer Dragoon Saga. JRPGs usually end up boring me for countless hours, and I really didn't want to pay a king's ransom just to suffer through another. However, after listening to Alex from Retro Game Squad podcast, after he recommended it, I decided to take the plunge. I would definitely recommend listening to the RPG episode that they did, because that goes into a lot of detail about the game and their thoughts about the game. And yeah, you'll see for yourself just how, good the game really is. Boy was I glad that I bought it. Panzer Dragoon is a 4-disc epic. It's packed with great cutscenes, great story, great action. It's not as long and bloated like other RPGs, and the combat is like semi-real time, and it's actually a lot of fun. I put in around 25 hours or so into Saga, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And not only that, but it's actually a game that I would probably replay again in the future at some point, which I can't say about a lot of RPGs. So that's definitely my pick for most played. Now it's time for the second of my negative awards, most frustrating. Again, like with most disappointing, this isn't necessarily a bad game. A game can be frustrating because of many different reasons, so bad camera, bad controls, gameplay, loading times, etc. So these kind of things can, cause frustration in the game that may otherwise be generally quite good. All of these potential problem areas that I just mentioned, Lemmings 3D pretty much hits all of those. The game has many buttons and is mapped onto a Saturn controller that has very few. The way that the developers got around this was by using a button to switch between two different sets of controls, effectively doubling the amount of buttons they have to work with. I mean, it works, but it also makes controlling the game quite convoluted. So much so that I tend to avoid moving the camera unless I have to. Otherwise I'll end up pressing a button that I shouldn't and just completely ruin the puzzle and have to start the level again. The worst part is the game probably could have worked with a simpler control scheme and better camera controls, instead of just remapping the PC controls into a Saturn pad. Really, it just reeks of laziness on the developer's part more than anything. It's not just the controls though, and the camera issues that those controls inevitably create, but the game's quite slow paced and very challenging. That in itself isn't a problem, but you know, with the number of levels and the difficulty required, you'll need to retry a lot during the course of the game. And that in itself can be quite frustrating if you don't have patience, like me, but it's made so much worse by really long loading times. That being said, the game isn't bad. It's a competent attempt at creating a 3D Lemmings game, and I admire that. In fact, I actually enjoyed the game enough that I covered it on one of my Gems videos. But I think that you would be better off playing it on the PC if you're not a huge Saturn aficionado. Picking a hidden gem wasn't the easiest task. I played quite a few games this year that are relatively unknown but are a fantastic time. At the top of the pile though sat two games, one of which I actually covered in the last awards episode, meaning that the winner of this award will go to Stellar Assault SS. Stellar Assault SS is a follow-up to Stellar Assault for the 32X, which was also known as Shadow Squadron in America. I've never played that game before, so I can't compare them in any way, but you don't need to have played the original to appreciate this. Hell, the story is predominantly in Japanese anyway, so you only really get the gist of what you need to do as you're playing anyway. Don't let that put you off though. You can follow what's going on through the gameplay, and it does create a story worth following, from what little you can understand, but what you should be playing this game for is the space shooting. If you've ever played Star Wars Arcade or, any games in that vein, you should have an idea about what to expect. It puts you in a first-person cockpit view of a space fighter, and you accomplish a range of objectives, taking down bad guys, destroying asteroids, navigating type mega weapons to destroy the core. It's all very Star Wars, but that's fine since the game evokes that same badassery that you feel when you play the Star Wars game. The game has two ships for you to choose from. One has a lock-on fire, and that has two-player functionality as well. The second one is manual aiming and single-player only, but the shots pack a hell of a punch. They offer two very distinct play styles, and it's worth playing through the game twice just to experience them both. When I went into this game, I was just expecting a pricey Star Wars ripoff. I did kinda get that, but I wasn't expecting it to be so damn good. Whilst it's not as good as, say, the likes of Rogue Leader, it's still way better than most Star Wars games, and is actually one of the better titles in the Saturn's library. And now for the grand finale. The best game of 2018. The game that surpasses all the others this year as being my favourite. The game that... who am I kidding? You all know it's Rockman 8. I've covered the game on my Saturn Gems list this year. I've covered it in a review. I've covered it on a recent Retro Odyssey podcast. Hell, the music I used during my intro segments are from the game. You all knew this was coming. In fact, talking about the game really on this would only be reiterating what I've said countless times before. So I'll focus on why I prefer it to other games that have also been handed awards. As I've said before, I love almost everything about this game. From the mechanics, to the level design, to the artwork, to the music. Mechanically speaking, the controls are spot on, and it feels just like a Mega Man game. But they also take advantage of splitting the game into two halves by utilising special weapon abilities within the stages, which makes the weapons kinda useful as platforming tools rather than just taking down a boss. They also introduced the Rock Ball, which unfortunately gets forgotten about after Mega Man 8, which is great as a weapon, but also loads of fun to use as a way of traversing the level. These are coupled with levels full of great design, and even the one misstep, Astro Man, still has some interesting and fun design and doesn't distract too much from the game. The funness of the levels and the gameplay mechanics makes this a great game to jump into whenever and just have a blast. I never get bored of it. The aesthetics too are also the best of any game I've played this year. The anime art style suits Mega Man really well and just fits. Whilst I handed the award to Elevator Action Returns, that game really is second to Rockman 8 visually. The music doesn't slack either, it has great music throughout. While not as great as some of the other games I've played this year, they're still a delight to listen to, and I often listen to the tracks on YouTube while I'm doing other things. All in all, Rockman 8 is not only the best game of 2018 for me, it's also probably my favourite Saturn game too. The fact that the Saturn version also has bonus content that has remained exclusive to the Saturn version ever since has only really solidified my love for it. It's a true masterpiece. So, those are my Sega Saturn Awards for 2018. I hope you enjoyed them. It's something I was really looking forward to doing, and I hope you enjoyed watching them. I'm planning to do this as a yearly thing, and I may even extend it to cover the Switch as well in the future, or I might just do like a separate award for the Switch games. Anyway, with my categories in mind, what awards would you give out to Saturn games you've played this year? Do any of them match mine? I'm interested to hear what you say, so drop a comment below and let me know. It's my last video of 2018 as well, so time to say goodbye until next year. Bye.